13 years ago, Frictional Games released Amnesia: The Dark Descent, and it sent the relatively niche, defenseless first-person survival horror subgenre into the mainstream. The game went viral. YouTubers like PewDiePie and Markiplier exploded in popularity playing these games, and the game became one of the most well-known horror games of all time. The gameplay mostly consisted of hiding from monsters and puzzle solving, but the lighting, sound, creatures, and detailed environments made it one of the most frightening and immersive horror games to ever release. The game's popularity made sequels inevitable. A few years later, Amnesia: A Machine for Pigs released, and although I found the story to be pretty interesting, Machine for Pigs wasn't created by Frictional, and it showed. Its developers, the Chinese Room, are more well known for walking simulators, and this game felt much less exciting than the original from a gameplay perspective, though I still find it underrated. In the meantime, Frictional was working on a new IP, Soma. Releasing in 2015, Soma had a brand new deep-water sci-fi setting, but it did still have a lot of the same things that made Dark Descent great. Great lighting, sound design, decent puzzles, and a great sense of place, forcing you to be immersed in the game's depths. This game, however, took a major step forward narratively. It featured 2 fully voiced protagonists, more interesting lore, and most of all, terrifying philosophical questions littered throughout the great plot. Soma remains one of my favorite stories in games to date. 5 years later, in 2020, Frictional released Amnesia Rebirth, a game that kind of flew under the radar of many, but was solid. It didn't reinvent the wheel, but it was fun. The gameplay experience was decent, and it was once again a greatly immersive setting. Despite Frictional themselves never really making a bad game, the defenseless survival horror genre felt stagnant. It was becoming incredibly saturated. For every Outlast, there were 10 other games that felt half-baked and made only with the hopes of going viral. For the past few years, interest in these games had died down. At least, that's how it felt to me. Whereas some horror IP like Resident Evil seemed to be building up more and more steam, it seemed like a lot of these defenseless survival horror games could be on their way out. However, with the recent release of Amnesia: The Bunker, Frictional Games has breathed new life into this genre, and has made me more excited about the Amnesia franchise than I've been since The Dark Descent. Amnesia: The Bunker has many familiar core mechanics from its predecessors: walking, running, jumping, and hiding, but it's what is added around these mechanics in The Bunker that makes it Frictional's most fun to play, well-designed game to date. But before I get into the mechanics, here's some set dressing. You play as Henri Clement, a French World War I soldier who, after suffering an injury, wakes up in a bunker. After exploring, you find pretty much all of your comrades are likely dead, and those who might not be dead fled the bunker, blowing the entrance closed. Your objective? Well, you need to blow it back open with some dynamite to escape. On this journey, you'll learn about the men who once occupied the bunker and their slow descent into madness, initially brought on by the war, but heavily exacerbated by the arrival of the Beast. The Beast is the antagonist of the bunker, and it itself is part of the puzzle you'll need to solve to escape this hell. The map is littered with holes in the wall that the Beast can pop out of at any time to start patrolling any given area. Though the Beast is menacing on screen, it's the threat of the Beast lurking off screen that's all the more terrifying. Thanks to the once again excellent sound design, you can hear the Beast scurrying through the walls of the bunker looking for the best place to start hunting you. The entire time you'll be trying to keep noise to a minimum to avoid alerting the Beast to your location. The fact that getting caught by the Beast is pretty much always an instant death makes him an ever-present, relevant threat. You'll want to get a lay of the land for each area before you enter, identifying hiding places and escape routes so you can be prepared to act on a moment's notice. Throughout the game, I often found myself wondering about the origins of the Beast, much like some of the soldiers who previously occupied the bunker. But when it shows up, all those thoughts seem so pointless. It doesn't matter who or what this thing is. If it finds you, you are dead. The story quickly takes a backseat to the primitive need to survive. From a gameplay perspective, this is Frictional's most engaging experience to date. Though their core movement and interactive systems remain constant, everything they've built around those mechanics that make the game feel completely new. One of the most shocking additions to gameplay is the revolver. Many were concerned this would cheapen the experience, but that is not the case. The Beast is unkillable, being only temporarily stunned by a well-placed shot of the revolver, giving you just enough time to escape sticky situations. However, the revolver has other uses as well. You can shoot locks off doors, shoot explosive barrels, trigger trap. These are just some of the applications I discovered in my initial playthrough. But this is no cop-out. Ammo is incredibly limited. Often you'll find one bullet at a time, and the game often forces you to use that bullet far sooner than you'd like. A fully loaded revolver is something most players will likely not get in the game, and that is entirely by design. Almost every other item you find along the way is multi-purpose as well. You can use a grenade to scare off the beast, or you can use it to blow open a locked door. This gives the game an immersive sim quality. The more you experiment with things you find, the more you'll be rewarded. This really brings the immersion to new heights, and it really deepens the gameplay beyond Amnesia's somewhat rigid lock-and-key puzzle roots. Your light source is once again a big deal in Amnesia the Bunker. This time you'll have two primary sources to choose from. The first is your flashlight, a hand-charged flashlight that has to be constantly restarted, and it makes some noise when you use it. This is a fascinating trade-off, as sometimes you'll have to choose between light and making noise that could give away your location. The other source is the generator. The generator is a gas-powered beacon of hope that provides light to nearly the entire bunker and powers some of the machinery found throughout the base. The massive amount of light deters the beast from showing up as much, and keeping it running will make your life generally easier. But like the other resources in the game, fuel is somewhat limited. If you're diligent, you can probably create a stockpile, but it'll take some time, and you'll need to be conservative and know when to burn fuel. Although this is an older engine, the lighting, environment, and sound work together create yet another incredible, immersive, and terrifying experience. So this generator is located in the bunker's central safe room, and this is where the brilliance of the map design comes in to perfectly complement the newly improved gameplay. Amnesia's map is built around this central room. This hub room provides a place for the player to rest, save, store items, and use the generator. It also has the game's only map. The placement of this room and its usefulness to the player give the game a beautiful, iterative nature. It allows the player to complete objectives at their own pace and take short or long excursions to complete objectives or stock on supplies. I've heard others describe the map as a wheel, with the generator room being in the center, and each area being a spoke for the player to venture out to, and I think that's a pretty apt description. Each wing of the bunker has puzzles to solve, objectives to complete, supplies to collect, and notes to find, which provide great context to the current situation. As I spent more time in the bunker, I grew a strong affection for this room, as it offered a familiar solace that some of the Resident Evil safe rooms of the past had given me. Going out on excursions and returning to center with its generous light, soothing music, and ability to checkpoint your progress gives the player a small, or sometimes large, sense of victory over the beast, but only until you inevitably have to leave that warm light. The feeling of completing an objective and then running like hell back to the safe room reminded me of that feeling that you get as a kid, when you turn off the hall light and you have to sprint back to your room as fast as you can before whatever is hiding in the darkness grabs you. The comfort and safety of that room not only makes the player feel safe, but it makes everything outside of the room feel even more dangerous. Oh, and make sure you remember to lock the doors when you go back to that room. I'm not going to go into much detail on the story, but it's quite good. You'll find it mostly told in notes, but it's sufficient, and it provides depth to the already excellent environment. Amnesia the Bunker is by far the most underrated game I've played this year. It may not top Soma narratively, but it's easily the most fun and replayable of Frictional's games to date. It's no surprise that the pioneers of this subgenre are the ones to breathe a new life into it. I highly recommend this game to all horror game fans, even if you weren't a fan of the previous Amnesia games, from its map, to its puzzles, to its multi-purpose items allowing you to solve problems your own way, to the incredible enemy. This game is brilliantly yet simply designed. For me, one of the most important things in horror games is immersion, and once again, Frictional has shown how effectively they can pull you into a location and grip you tightly until you step away from the screen itself, despite some occasionally jank visuals, which are usually clouded in darkness anyway. I have no real notes for this game. It's a bona fide horror classic.